The Zionist movement and Jewish immigration, Zionism as a political movement, began in the late 19th century in response to European anti-Semitism and the belief that Jews needed a homeland to ensure their survival and safety. This led to organized waves of Jewish immigration, or Aliyah, to Palestine, which at the time was part of the Ottoman Empire and later under British control after World War I. First waves of immigration. The first significant wave of Jewish immigration began in the 1880s, with more organized efforts during the British Mandate period, 1917 to 1948. Zionists purchased land, established Jewish agricultural settlements, and sought to build a thriving Jewish community in Palestine. Impact on the Arab population. As Jewish immigration increased, tensions between the Jewish immigrants and the Arab population, mostly Muslim and Christian Palestinians, also grew. Palestinians feared displacement and the loss of their land and identity. The more land Zionists purchased, the more this tension escalated. The Balfour Declaration and British Mandate. The Balfour Declaration of 1917 was a crucial moment in Zionist history, as Britain formally endorsed the idea of a Jewish national home in Palestine. This provided significant legitimacy to the Zionist cause and encouraged further Jewish immigration. However, this declaration also ignited fierce resistance from the Arab population in Palestine, who felt their rights and claims to the land were being undermined. The British Mandate period, 1920 to 1948, became increasingly volatile, as Britain attempted to balance its support for the Zionist project with maintaining control and addressing Arab opposition. Arab resistance and escalating tensions. As Jewish immigration increased, Palestinian Arabs began organizing resistance movements. The 1920s and 1930s saw a series of Arab protests, riots, and strikes in response to the growing Jewish presence. Tensions culminated in the Arab Revolt of 1936 to 1939, a large-scale uprising against both British rule and Jewish immigration. During this time, both the Zionist movement and Palestinian nationalism began to take more defined forms, each seeing the other as a threat to their existence and future in the land. Partition and the creation of Israel, 1947 to 1948. In 1947, the United Nations proposed the Partition Plan, which sought to divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international control. The Jewish community accepted the plan, seeing it as a path to achieving the Zionist goal of a Jewish state. However, the Palestinian Arabs and neighboring Arab states rejected the plan, seeing it as unfair and a violation of their rights. The 1948 War, Nakba. When Israel declared its independence in May 1948, neighboring Arab states launched a war against the newly created state. The war resulted in a decisive Israeli victory and the displacement of over 700,000 Palestinians, an event known as the Nakba catastrophe. Most of these Palestinians became refugees, and many of their descendants still live in refugee camps in the West Bank, Gaza, Lebanon, Jordan, and other places. The creation of Israel fulfilled the Zionist goal of a Jewish homeland, but simultaneously created a deep and lasting grievance among Palestinians who felt dispossessed of their land and denied self-determination. 5. Ongoing conflict and occupation. Since 1948, Zionism's impact has continued to shape the conflict, particularly through the issues of territory, settlements, and Palestinian refugees. 1967 Six-Day War and Occupation. In 1967, Israel won a decisive victory in the Six-Day War, capturing the West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, and Golan Heights. This resulted in the military occupation of Palestinian territories, an occupation that continues to this day, with profound consequences for the conflict. Jewish settlements in the West Bank. A key element of modern Zionism is the establishment of Jewish settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, territories that Palestinians seek for a future state. Many Zionists, particularly religious Zionists, view these areas as part of the biblical land of Israel and essential to the Jewish homeland. Palestinians, on the other hand, see the settlements as illegal and an obstacle to peace, as they fragment the territory and make a viable Palestinian state difficult to achieve. Refugee issue. The status of Palestinian refugees, many of whom are descendants of those displaced in 1948, remains unresolved. Zionism's success in creating a Jewish state coincided with the mass displacement of Palestinians, and the issue of the right of return for refugees has been a central point of contention in peace negotiations. 6. Political Zionism and Israeli policy. The Zionist ideology continues to shape Israeli politics and policies. Right to self-defense and security. For many Israelis, Zionism means maintaining a secure Jewish state in the face of threats from militant groups like Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and hostile states. Israel's military operations in Gaza and elsewhere are often framed as efforts to defend the Jewish state against attacks, but they often result in significant civilian casualties and destruction in Palestinian areas, fueling resentment and anger. Two-state solution versus Greater Israel. The Zionist vision has evolved, with some Israeli political movements supporting a two-state solution, while others, particularly more religious or nationalist factions, support the idea of a Greater Israel, which includes the West Bank and possibly other areas. These differing visions complicate efforts to reach a lasting peace agreement. Impact on the current conflict. The legacy of Zionism directly influences the dynamics of today's Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Territorial disputes. Zionism's drive to secure Jewish control over land has led to disputes over territory, especially in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, where Israeli settlements continue to grow. Palestinians see this as a violation of their rights and an obstacle to statehood. Gaza and blockade. The situation in Gaza is a flashpoint in the conflict. Since 2007, Gaza has been controlled by Hamas, a Palestinian Islamist group that rejects Israel's existence. Israel, citing security concerns, has imposed a blockade on Gaza, limiting the flow of goods and people. Periodic wars between Israel and Hamas, including the conflicts in 2008, 2014, and more recently, result in heavy casualties on both sides, though Palestinian civilians in Gaza suffer the most from the humanitarian impact. Jerusalem. Zionism views Jerusalem as the eternal capital of the Jewish people, while Palestinians see East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state. The status of Jerusalem remains one of the most contentious issues in peace talks. Conclusion. Zionism's success in creating the State of Israel has been central to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, fulfilling the aspirations of Jews for a homeland, but also displacing Palestinians and fueling decades of tension and violence. Today's conflict is rooted in these competing national movements, with Zionism continuing to shape Israeli policy, territorial disputes, and the broader struggle for sovereignty and self-determination in the region. The unresolved issues of occupation, settlements, refugees, and the status of Jerusalem ensure that the legacy of Zionism remains a driving force in the ongoing conflict.